Sometimes life throws you curveballs that are so bizarre, so unbelievable, that you can barely process them. And when those curveballs involve the people you love most, it shatters everything you thought you knew. I'm talking about a betrayal so deep, a secret kept for so long, that it still makes my stomach churn when I think about it. Imagine finding out your own mother had kept your biological daughter a secret from you for years, only for her to re-enter your life as your nanny. Yeah, you heard that right. My mother unknowingly hired my biological daughter to be my nanny. Was I wrong for the way I reacted when the truth exploded? Tell me, honestly, what would you have done if your entire world was built on a lie like that? Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time before my life became this twisted soap opera. I grew up in a small town, a relatively normal childhood, or so I thought. My mom, Sarah, was always a bit overbearing in hindsight. She was a single mother, always emphasizing how she sacrificed everything for me. My dad, well, he was a ghost. She always told me he left before I was born and wanted nothing to do with us. I accepted that, believed it, and carried that abandonment wound throughout my teenage years. I met Mark when I was 18, fresh out of high school, full of dreams and a desperate need for affection. Mark was older, charming, and exactly the kind of bad news my mother warned me about. But you know how it is when you're young and rebellious. Warnings just sound like challenges. We fell hard and fast, and within a few months I was pregnant. My world, which was already pretty precarious, completely imploded. When I told Mark, he disappeared, just like my father. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was terrified. My mother, upon hearing the news, went ballistic. I still remember her face, contorted with a mixture of anger and disappointment. She screamed, she cried, she threatened. She told me I had ruined my life, just like she predicted. The pressure was immense. She kept talking about how a baby would derail my future, how I wouldn't be able to go to college, how I'd be stuck. She painted a picture of a bleak, miserable life if I kept the baby. In my vulnerable, scared state, her words chipped away at my resolve. I was 18, alone, and completely overwhelmed. I truly believed I had no other options. One day, my mom sat me down, her voice uncharacteristically soft. She said she had a solution, a way for me to still have a future. She knew a couple who desperately wanted a child, who couldn't have one of their own. She said they would give the baby a wonderful life, a life I couldn't provide. She even offered to handle everything, to make sure I wouldn't have to see the baby after birth, to make it easier on me. She said it was the most selfless thing I could do for my child. I was a mess, crying constantly, barely sleeping. The idea of adoption felt like a heavy shroud, a decision that would haunt me forever, but my mother's relentless pressure, combined with my own fear, eventually broke me. I agreed. The 9 months that followed were a blur of secrecy and shame. My mother kept me isolated, telling everyone I was sick, keeping me away from friends and extended family. The birth was traumatic, not just physically, but emotionally. They took her away almost immediately. I remember just a flash of dark hair, a tiny hand, and then she was gone. My mother was there, a pillar of strength, or so I thought at the time, telling me I had made the right choice, that I was brave. The adoption was closed, and I never saw the adoptive parents or received any information about my daughter. It was like she had never existed, a painful memory I tried to bury deep. After that, my life took a different path. I went to college, got a degree, and moved to a bigger city for work. I met David, the love of my life, a kind, stable man who knew about my past, about the baby I gave up, and never judged me. We got married and eventually had 2 beautiful children, a son, Leo, and a daughter, Maya. Our family was complete, or so I thought. My mother, Sarah, would visit frequently, doting on her grandchildren, always playing the role of the loving grandmother. There were times, especially around my daughter Maya's age, when a pang of grief would hit me, a phantom limb ache for the daughter I had given away. But I pushed it down, focusing on the family I had built. Life was good, busy, and fulfilling. David's job required him to travel often, and with 2 young children and a demanding career, I found myself overwhelmed. My mom, ever the helper, suggested I hire a nanny. She even offered to help me interview candidates. I was hesitant. I'd always been a hands-on mom, but the stress was getting to me. I finally agreed. We interviewed a few people, but none of them felt quite right. Then my mom called me one day, practically bubbling with excitement. She had found the perfect person, she said. Her name was Emily. She was bright, enthusiastic, had excellent references, and apparently, a natural way with children. My mom had met her at a community event, and was instantly charmed. I was a bit wary, preferring to do my own vetting, but my mom was insistent. Just meet her, she urged. You'll love her. So I did. Emily walked into our home, and honestly, I was struck by how familiar she looked. Not exactly like me, but there was something in her eyes, a certain curve of her smile, that made me feel an odd sense of déjà vu. She was beautiful, with long, dark hair and expressive eyes that seemed to hold a quiet intelligence. She was immediately wonderful with Leo and Maya, who took to her instantly. She was patient, creative, and seemed to anticipate their needs before they even expressed them. My mom was right. She was perfect. I hired her on the spot. Emily quickly became an indispensable part of our lives. She was like a big sister to Leo and Maya, a calm and reassuring presence in our sometimes chaotic household. She was responsible, always on time, and genuinely loved my children. We often had casual conversations, talking about her life, her aspirations. She was studying part-time, working towards a degree in early childhood education. She mentioned she was an only child, raised by loving adoptive parents. Hearing that always made my heart clench a little, a reminder of my own past. Sometimes, I'd catch myself staring at her, trying to place that feeling of familiarity. I'd dismiss it as silly, just a trick of my mind, probably because I was constantly thinking about the daughter I had given up. David, too, commented on how good Emily was, how lucky we were to have her. My mom, of course, took full credit for finding her, often reminding me, see? I told you she was perfect. So that's the situation I was in, completely oblivious, living a lie that was about to unravel in the most spectacular and painful way imaginable. My mother, my children's grandmother, the woman who supposedly loved me, had orchestrated all of this. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. How would you react if you discovered such a monumental deception, especially one that involved your own child? The first crack in my carefully constructed reality appeared subtly. Emily had been with us for about 6 months when David and I decided to take a weekend trip, leaving the kids with her. Before we left, I was organizing some old photo albums, trying to declutter, and I stumbled upon a box of old baby photos of me. You know, the really ancient, faded ones that belonged to my mother. I was about to put them away when one picture caught my eye. It was a photo of my mother, Sarah, holding a newborn baby. The baby looked eerily familiar. The same dark hair, the same delicate features I saw every day in Emily. My heart started to pound. I dismissed it, of course. It was probably just me as a baby, or a cousin, or some family friend's child. But the image lingered. A few weeks later, my mom was over for dinner. Emily was there too, finishing up with the kids. My mom was chatting animatedly, and at one point, she pulled out an old wallet photo. It was a picture of a baby, tucked into a little plastic sleeve. She often carried photos of me and my children, so it wasn't unusual. But then she showed it to Emily saying, "Look at this little cherub. This is my first grandchild, taken right after she was born." My blood ran cold. My first grandchild? That was my daughter, Maya. But the picture she showed Emily, it wasn't Maya. It was a baby that looked exactly like the one in the photo album, the one that looked like Emily. And then Emily, with a polite smile, said, "Oh, she's beautiful. Looks a little like me when I was a baby, actually." My mom chuckled, a forced, nervous sound, and quickly put the photo away. A knot formed in my stomach. The puzzle pieces were starting to click into place, pieces I desperately didn't want to see. I couldn't sleep that night. The images, the comments, the strange familiarity, it all swirled in my head. The next morning, I confronted my mother. I didn't beat around the bush. I showed her the old photo from the album, the one of her holding the baby. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "who is this baby?" She blanched. Her face went ashen, and she started stammering, trying to come up with an excuse. "Oh, that's That's an old photo of your cousin's baby, darling. Why do you ask? Her lie was transparent. No, Mom. I pushed, my voice gaining strength. That's not true. This baby looks exactly like Emily. And you called her your first grandchild yesterday, but it wasn't Maya. What are you hiding? Her composure completely crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes, and she started confessing, a torrent of words pouring out, each one a dagger to my heart. She told me the truth, the horrific, unbelievable truth. The adoptive parents she had arranged for my baby? They were her cousins, distant relatives who lived a few towns over. She had convinced them to adopt my daughter, telling them a fabricated story about my instability and inability to raise a child. She had kept in touch with them over the years, watching my daughter grow up from afar. And then, when I needed a nanny, she saw an opportunity. Emily, now an adult, was looking for a job. My mother, with her twisted logic, thought it would be a way for me to have my daughter in my life without ever knowing the truth. A way for her to fix her past mistake. She thought she was being clever, manipulating everyone for what she believed was our own good. The world went silent around me. I couldn't hear anything but the roaring in my ears. My own mother. My own daughter. Under my roof. As my nanny. The betrayal was so profound, so heinous, it felt like a physical blow. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw a stranger. A monster who had stolen years of my life, years of my daughter's life, and then had the audacity to play God with our destinies. I screamed. I screamed until my throat was raw, until my voice gave out. I called her every name under the sun, fueled by a rage I didn't know I possessed. David, hearing the commotion, rushed in, and I, through my tears, explained everything. He was just as shocked, just as disgusted. My mother, reduced to a sobbing mess, begged for forgiveness, claiming she only did it out of love, to protect me. But her words were hollow, meaningless in the face of such a colossal lie. The confrontation with Emily was even harder. How do you tell your nanny, who you've grown to adore, that she's actually your long-lost daughter? It was a conversation filled with tears, confusion, and overwhelming disbelief. She had no idea. She thought her adoptive parents were her biological parents. The news shattered her world, just as it had shattered mine. Her adoptive parents, my mother's cousins, were initially resistant, trying to maintain the lie. But faced with my furious resolve and Emily's desperate need for answers, they eventually confirmed my mother's story, adding more painful details about how my mother had coerced them into keeping the secret, promising them a child and threatening to expose their past if they ever spoke up. The web of lies was sickening. The aftermath was a hurricane. My mother was banished from our lives, unequivocally. I couldn't look at her, couldn't bear to be in the same room. The trust was utterly broken, irreparable. Emily, my daughter, went through a period of intense emotional turmoil. It was an impossible situation. She was my child, but also a young woman who had just had her entire identity ripped apart. We decided to take it slow, to build a relationship based on honesty and healing. We spent countless hours talking, crying, trying to piece together the fragments of our lives. It was awkward, painful, but also beautiful in its own way. My children, Leo and Maya, were too young to fully grasp the gravity of the situation. But they knew Emily was family now, not just their nanny. David was incredibly supportive, helping me navigate this emotional minefield, offering comfort and unwavering love. It's been a few years since that fateful day. Emily is no longer our nanny, of course. She moved into her own apartment, focusing on her studies, but she's a constant presence in our lives. We're building our relationship, slowly, carefully, learning to be mother and daughter after so many lost years. It's a journey, one filled with both joy and lingering pain. There's a gaping hole in my heart where those years with her should have been, and a bitterness towards my mother that I don't think will ever truly fade. But there's also an overwhelming sense of gratitude, a profound joy at having found my daughter. The whole ordeal taught me about the corrosive power of secrets, the devastating impact of manipulation, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. It also taught me that sometimes, the family you choose, the love you build, is stronger than any biological bond. If you've ever felt betrayed or had your world turned upside down by a shocking secret, then you know a fraction of what I went through. Like this video, if you were on my side, If you think I was right to cut my mother out of my life. Subscribe for more stories like this, stories of life's wildest twists and turns. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. What would you have done? I'll see you all in the next story. D.